Hello everyone, Jose J. Garcia with Garcia Home University here. So quick video for you on evictions. Yes, evictions are back. They are should have never gone away, but a lot of things transpire over the last year, and now from what I'm seeing, especially in the whole southeast at this time, is basically back to normal. Little hiccups here and there still. I think still trying to help the tenants, that sort of thing. But overall, I mean, it's bottom line is if you have not made payments on your home payment, if you're a landlord and you've dealt with tenants that are not paying you, you should be able to move forward with evictions at this time. So now there is a process that you have to go through. Every city county is different, so keep that in mind. I always advise investors check with the county. You cannot rely on one county's rule regulations versus another one, sort of thing. So you don't want to kind of do something wrong in that sense. Don't get yourself in trouble for that. It's not a whole hard task to deal with. I mean, overall, it's just waiting game to me. That's the way it's always been. It's you go post a note, you get the sheriff per se to go out there and give them their notice, and then they have X amount of time to respond to it if they're going to respond to it, which most people don't. And then if they don't, then it's basically pretty cut dry from there. Is you do another report on that. They go out there and do what's called a writ. 3 days they have to move out. If they don't, you can basically physically move them out. The sheriff will do that for you, not yourself. And again, a little process on that, but check with the city county. Now, I was going to talk about three different type of evictions, just so you have a little more knowledge on that. And if you do want more advice on this, reach out to me directly. We'll have to go through your county, city, that sort of thing, and again, get specifics on that sort of thing. It may be as simple as a phone call. You can Google this, most of the stuff in your counties, but if you have to make a phone call, just call down to the court system and ask them to tell them what your issue, your concerns are, and how you want to move forward, and they'll advise you to the best of their ability. But let's start with the three types of evictions. So, non-payment of rent. Pretty simple, right? You don't pay, you get evicted. Should have been that way. So, yes, if your tenant, let's say you're a landlord, okay? If you're a landlord and your resident has not made a payment to you, then of course, certain days, every city has different where you have to give them a grace period. Then they have to have an X amount of time so that they can give you the payment and then stay within good standing. Now, before I even go any further, let me go ahead and toss this out there because this is something that a lot of investors do not know. If let's say you have a tenant, you're a landlord again, and this tenant is late every month. Every month they're just late. Now, granted, okay, some investors say, well, I get the late fee that comes with it. Yeah, I mean, I don't particularly like that sense. I want people to be on time. But if they're late and late, typically when it happens is they start getting late later and later, and it just starts dragging. And every month it becomes a battle to get a payment out of them. Okay, just because they're making the payment even later and later does not mean you have to keep them there. You can, as a landlord, deny the taking an additional payment. And it should be on your clause, your agreement that, hey, let's just say mine, is due on the first, late after the fifth, there's a late fee, then it's per day charge. After the 15th, we can file eviction, et cetera, et cetera. You'll have some tenants that wait till the 14th or the 15th, and they just every month, and it's a chasing game. You can deny payment for them being late 3 times, 5 times, however many times, but I would definitely suggest that you put it on your clause. After you have been late 5 times or whatever the amount it is, we can deny you payment. That I learned when I was doing a whole lot of landlord kind of thing, and I was in court quite a bit for seeing these things, and I was seeing other landlords that were dealing with this, and I heard this one case where that's what the way it was. The tenant had been late about 6, 7 times, and basically the office decided we're not going to take your payments any further. So at this time, you had to evict. She tried to, the resident tried to argue that, well, I have all the money. I even had the money orders here where I dropped them off that brought them back to my home. And the judge ruled against her because, again, it was in the agreement that after, I think, 3 times being late, they can deny payment and basically evict you. And that's what happened. So that can be a thing. Definitely put it on, like I said, your agreement. That's something for your realtor. I'm sorry, your attorney. I'm not an attorney, so I cannot give you legal advice. But put that on paper and make sure you abide by it. So that one is non-payment. If you're late, bottom line, you get X amount of time. You get a grace period. You have a late fee. If they're late after that, it's eviction time. That's all it is. None complies with lease term violation and rules and regulations. That's huge, and that's definitely a gray area. Let me touch up on clearly on that. As an investor, you come into a mobile home park, you have to buy rules and regulations just like anybody else. And that's part of the promise that you give your tenant, your park management, that your tenants will do, whether it's a buyer, whether it's a tenant, doesn't matter. If they live at the park, everybody abides by the rules and regulations. Let's say you have a rent to own in this park. The tenants pay you on time. They pay lot rent on time. It should be one payment only, of course. But they just can't seem to turn their radio down. At night, they're supposed to be quiet a certain amount of time. It's 1 in the morning. They're still partying, jamming. It's going to catch up sooner or later. And that part management, they will come down on that. So at one point, they will say that if you violated your rules and regulations based on the packet, that information that you should have received moving into, you get evicted. Once again, they may just deny your next payment and you have to evict them. That can be troublesome for you. I will say that for you as an investor, make sure that you get these rules and regulations. You may have to fill them out yourself, plenty fine, but your resident, whether it's a buyer or a tenant, they have to fill them out as well so that everybody's on the same page. Should they choose to break the rules, now it's on them. Still an aggravation, but at least everybody's on the same page. Pay attention to that. That can get you kicked out. Holdover, staying past the end of the lease. Again, that's something similar that once, all these, all in all, is then the point is, look, if you can put everything on paper up front, you can avoid the headaches and the nonsense later to come. Later on, well, can I do this? Well, can I do that? Any attorney is going to immediately ask, well, what is in your agreement? What is it that's in your contract that states based on that? And they'll want to see the contract and read it, of course. But put everything up front, read it, proofread it, take it to an attorney, make sure they read it and make sure you didn't miss something. They'll add stuff to it. It's well worth the investment. I'll tell you that now. And then just, use it. One agreement once corrected in the same county, city, maybe even state can be used all throughout. So one contract just be getting copies of. But holdover staying past the end of the lease, I mean, that basically means that, let's just say in a 12-month agreement after that, if the tenant doesn't want to renew or can't renew, then they get evicted. As simple as that. Again, you deny payment, they can't keep going for whatever reason it is that you don't want them there any further, any longer. They've exceeded their contract and they're past the time. Hope this video helps. Definitely, evictions not a part of any landlord or investor. I think not even one of our favorite tests to do. Definitely is part of. Unfortunately, you will run into it, and even if you have rent to owns, it's I call it a more responsible individual. But even then, you will have that come along, and unfortunately, that's something you have to be ready for. So, do your studying, do your homework, call the city, have all these rules and regulations. I would even suggest for those of you investors listening in too that have not done a deal yet and highly thinking about landlord, I would get myself a packet from the city, county, and let me read what is it that I should abide by, things I can't do, that sort of thing. Because there are some things you cannot do that I've seen investors do, and they get them in trouble. That happens. All right. If you're looking for coaching, visit GarciaMHU.com. You can always email me directly at j@GarciaMHU.com. Till next time, thank you for watching.